Hey everyone, welcome to the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z Teens podcast. We're a program that takes a lighthearted look at generational differences about all sorts of topics. We take a lighthearted look. We don't mean to get too serious or be the voice or to cause too much controversy with anything that we talk about. We're mainly here to just have a lot of fun about these generational differences that are between us. And at the end of the day, hopefully show that Gen X was the best generation to ever come about. Today, our topic is fast food. So I've mentioned before that I come from a very small town in Louisiana. And our fast food options were limited, even as they were limited in the 80s. Which is kind of my overall point to my teens, is that they have so many more things available to them today than what I think that we had growing up. And so for me in particular, our small town, I mean, there was a couple little local places that were like drive-ins, but we only really had, I mean, as far as national U.S. chains, Sonic and a Dairy Queen. My town did eventually get a McDonald's and a whole bunch of other stuff, but that was after I was gone. And so, believe it or not, McDonald's was actually a bit of a treat to go somewhere, and that was something we looked forward to when we went out of town, was to actually be able to go to McDonald's and have a hamburger from there. Now, while McDonald's certainly still exists, and it is actually kind of a nice thing sometimes when you're overseas. It's something that is universal that you can go and get. But everything else, there has been quite a bit of other chains that have gone forward. And there's many, many, many more restaurants now than what I would say were like the big three when I was growing up, which was McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. Those were the three that were pretty common and the major chains going forward. Now, I know that, I mean, I mentioned Sonic and Dairy Queen, those have existed, but to some degree, those were a bit more regional. The other one, which my wife grew up with, was In-N-Out, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I had never even heard of In-N-Out burgers until later, and they certainly have a big cult following. But nowadays, there's Smash Burger and Shake Shack, and Five Guys has really exploded on the scene, plus a much more broad array of fast food when you go beyond burgers to things like chicken, which would be your KFC and Popeyes, or Taco Bell, or Del Taco, or some of these other ones that are just enormous. So with that, I certainly grew up, again, I think part of the reason was that I didn't have a lot of availability, but I do like, I do like fast food burgers. And there is a moment and a time that, I mean, they're just the right thing, the right item at the right place. And, I still a fan of McDonald's, although we'll talk prices here in a little bit. Don't nearly go as often, which is also, I guess, better for my health. But with that, let's talk to the teens about what they consider their favorite fast food options.
Yeah, so I have a few, different favorites, kind of, depending on what type of fast food they offer. Taco Bell's always kind of been one of my favorites. I really do like the food there, and they're actually sort of healthy for a fast food brand, so that's kind of nice too. And they're pretty cheap. The other one, I've always liked Popeyes. That's kind of my go-to for fried chicken. And then as far as burgers, In-N-Out is always good. I've always liked Shake Shack too. I think those are probably kind of my top two. So yeah.
All right, what about you?
Fast food's pretty good. Some of my favorites, Cane's, In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A. Those are some of my favorites. Fast food, it's nice every once in a while. I don't really imagine myself having it every day. I don't think I'd be able to do that, but yeah.
Okay, so a couple things that you guys talked about. So first off, what's interesting, you just said Cane's, but obviously we have international folks that listen. So it's a chicken tenders place, Raising Cane's, which I bring up because it started in Louisiana. I think on the campus of the Louisiana State University is the original Raising Cane's. And boy, they have exploded in such a simple menu. And they are pretty good. In-N-Out. Let's talk In-N-Out first off. So first, I mean, I like In-N-Out. I do actually like their burger. It reminds me of a hometown place that used to make similar burgers, but I'm not in the In-N-Out is magical, the greatest thing ever, although I do think they're very good. What's your opinion on In-N-Out? Because people who really love In-N-Out tend to be very passionate about it.
Oh, I think their burgers are great and their milkshakes are pretty good. Their fries are they're kind of iffy, but I think pretty much everything else there is pretty good, and it's a good place to go. It's fun.
Okay. What about you on In-N-Out?
Yeah, I think In-N-Out is one of the best fast food burger places. It's a lot better than places like McDonald's or Burger King. It just feels like, I mean, it's a little bit more expensive, but I think it's still worth it because the burgers are just that much better.
Oh, see, I don't know. Now, growing up, my favorite was always Wendy's. And God, they used to have these doubles and these triples that as a teenager, especially teenage boys, was like, oh, when were you ready to take on the triple, which was a giant gut bomb, but it was so delicious. And then I remember the first time, like when I was old enough and felt ready for a Big Mac, that was a pretty cool feeling. Was there anything like that as far as when you were like, I'm ready for a double bacon burger or something that you took on at the age?
No, I don't think so. I don't really think that's really ever been a thing. I think just because fast food is so just widespread, and has been for my entire life. So,
I mean, that's probably true. Like I said, we were restricted. We didn't have all of that, so you looked forward to going to fast food restaurants, and that was like an event. And so when you were there, man, you really wanted to knock it out of the park and try something, especially as a teenage boys were competitive. And like I said, that Wendy's triple was always like, if you could eat that thing. What about you?
No, there's never really been anything like that. Not really a thing I do, or that's really a thing anymore.
Fair enough. Now, one of the things that has definitely occurred, and I think this is not just a U.S. phenomenon, but just how expensive a lot of those things are now. I call it, going down to your local McDonald's, we're now paying what used to be airport prices, and the airport, if you hit one of these fast food chains, is just crazy. Almost on par with what I would say more of your medium range, your Chili's, your Applebee's, kind of your more sit-down restaurants versus fast food. And so have you guys noticed the price increase? Because I certainly have.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit throughout the years. It's definitely gotten a lot more expensive. But I think there are, if you go to the right places, it still stays pretty cheap. But yeah, there's definitely been a price increase, kind of across the board, no matter where you go.
And what about you? You don't pay for too much, but have you noticed that things are a bit more expensive?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, not too much. The only thing I can really remember is when we paid like $70 for Taco Bell in Florida, but that's really it.
Yeah, so obviously you go to some of these places that are in big tourist areas and everything is more expensive. Speaking of Taco Bell and how it used to be, amazing deal. When I went through survival school, the portion where we actually did the week of survival, you get to the end and we were so hungry. And so you have like these dreams of food. And remember, we were all talking about what first meal we were going to have and comparing and stuff. And I remember the winner was like the guy who had the best idea, we thought, was a $20 bill and going to Taco Bell, because you could, at that time, get just about the whole menu or get like 20-something tacos. That always sticks with me because Taco Bell was. Now, again, I think they've upgraded the food a little bit, which obviously, and then inflation certainly over the years when I was in college. But yeah, it is difficult, and I sympathize with the restaurants and things like that. I obviously want them to pay their workers better, and I appreciate inflation, but it's no longer necessarily a cheap place to get just a decent, quick meal. And that's been tough. So let's try and wrap this up. I mean, what's your, I would say your top 3 go-to fast food restaurants?
I think it'd be kind of like I said earlier, Taco Bell, Popeyes, and Shake Shack.
Okay, what about you?
For me, it'd probably be Shake Shack, In-N-Out, Cane's.
You guys are so fancy. See, I still like the Whopper from Burger King, although I would probably, given the choice, I would go to McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. I mean, that's just funny because those are the classic ones. The other ones, I don't think they're necessarily better, and they're definitely more expensive. So that plays into my mind too, going forward. Hey, for anyone else, if you please, we'd love to hear what you think about, or what's your go-to, or what's your favorite fast food restaurant, and what's your least favorite. For our international folks that are listening, is there anything that we should know about in the U.S.? And if we were in your country, what are maybe some good fast food options that we should definitely try in your country? Been a good talk today. I appreciate you guys. With that, this has been the Gen X Dad and his Gen Z teens. Thanks. We'll see you next week. Bye.